Maryland Congressman and co-chair of the Republican Doctors Caucus, Andy Harris. So, Congressman, you had another case of bird flu in your county at a commercial broiler farm that makes, what, 9 regions now that are covered?
That's right. There's bird flu really in many areas around the country. In my district, we raise a lot of poultry, a lot of chickens, and there have been some flocks that have been affected that have had to have been destroyed or depopulated.
So I know that experts and everyday Americans both don't seem to be concerned about the risk to humans' health right now with the bird flu, but there have been about 67 human cases reported, including 1 death. As a doctor, should Americans be more concerned, and how exactly can someone get bird flu?
So right now, it's usually coming in contact with a flock or with some herd of animals in which the flu has entered. But, you know, keep that number in perspective. There are millions of people who have the regular flu. There are people who die from the regular flu. The regular flu is much more dangerous right now than the bird flu, but we're keeping our eye on the avian flu. We're testing the flocks. We're testing the wild birds that fly overhead to make sure that, again, we control the spread of the avian flu. But it's really the regular flu that's the most dangerous thing right now in this time of year.
So if you're sitting at home this morning, Congressman, doctor, you should not worry about eating the eggs in your refrigerator or making chicken for dinner tonight.
Oh, that's absolutely right. That's not how the bird flu is transmitted. Yeah, so that's not a problem.
I do want to ask you about the trade war, essentially, that's going on, and the tariffs, you know, between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. With just a few phone calls, though, the president got Mexico and Canada to stand down on their retaliatory tariffs and actually start to protect the borders from this flow of fentanyl that's coming in. What's your reaction to what we saw play out yesterday?
Well, my reaction is, why wasn't that done 4 years ago? The matter is, Joe Biden could have done exactly the same thing. We could have had the border under control. We could have had 10,000 troops in Canada and Mexico, of their own troops, going to the border to enforce the border. Clearly, this president is serious about border control, and the last administration wasn't.
Yeah, Maryland in particular, Congressman, has really struggled with fentanyl. The New York Times calling Baltimore the U.S. overdose capital. The numbers surging because of fentanyl on the streets. Americans hear tariffs. They may tune out, not understanding that Trump's goal is not necessarily economic. It's really more about making America safe from this deadly drug.
That's absolutely right. You know, those drugs come across our borders. Again, this has been true for years. The last administration, again, clearly could have done something to have slowed this down, but no, instead they wanted 10 to 12 million illegal immigrants across the border, hopefully becoming voters someday. That's not the way this president does business.
Yeah, I want to ask you about diplomacy and what we're seeing. Obviously, he was able to make those 2 phone calls yesterday to Mexico's president and Canada's president, but then he's also sending out his people overseas. You know, we saw Marco Rubio meeting with leaders in Panama and El Salvador as well. We saw what Rick Grinnell did over the weekend and getting those hostages released from Venezuela. What are you seeing play out in just these first 2 weeks on the world stage?
Well, the president is projecting American power. I mean, these people are going around the world not apologizing for America and its policies, but actually dealing with these foreign countries as we should, from a position of strength. And that strength is given to them by President Trump's policies. And it's a great change in our foreign policy situation. And I think it bodes well for not only the United States, but for the entire world.
You know, Congressman, finally, look, I know the Constitution, very clear. Congress, the House, has the power of the purse. Left is losing its mind over the president, cutting funding, freezing federal funding, especially to USAID. But when you hear things like $1.5 million to DEI efforts in Serbia, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, I mean, do you really believe that we've got to take a look at where the money is being spent?
Absolutely. The average American should be outraged that this is where their tax dollars are being spent. This is how we generate a $2 trillion deficit every year. And USAID was a perfect place to start because they waste tens of billions of dollars a year.
All right. Congressman Andy Harris, always great having you on. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.